Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over the colder temperatures over the eastern United States as well as some snow in the northwest, and we'll also be going over the fall foliage update for areas in the northern plains and also the northeast, where we're dealing with some of the fall colors starting to appear. They're not too vibrant as of right now, but probably over the next 2 weeks, I would say a lot of these areas, and especially further to the north, will start to get in on some of the more vibrant fall colors. So we'll be going over all of that and more in today's video. Make sure you are staying tuned all the way until the end. Here's a look at the current National Weather Service page. As you can see, we have some frost advisories for a little bit of eastern Idaho as well as for northern Maine around Caribou. And again, that's because temperatures could be going below about 36 or 37 degrees there over the next couple of days. We have some freeze watches in effect for northwestern Colorado, so we could potentially be getting below 32 in that area. Some red flag warnings in a little bit of Colorado and California, and then some flood watches in a little bit of Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. Other than that, we don't have many other watches or warnings. Yesterday, we had a high temperature of 106 degrees, 13 miles east-southeast of Mecca, California, as well as in Stovepipe Wells, California. Both of them got up to 106. The low temperature was in Walden, Colorado, and also in West Yellowstone Gate, Montana, where they both got down to 20 degrees, and the highest rainfall report was in Mount Baker, Washington, where they got 5.09 inches of rain. We also have a few wind advisories in western South Dakota that I didn't mention previously. So, again, not a lot going on today, but we do have that one winter storm in the northwest, and then we're going to be talking about the colder temperatures that are going to be heading further east. Before we talk about that, let's go over the fall foliage. I saw yesterday that they put out the Vermont foliage update. We already knew about the Maine one, the New Hampshire one. They don't have the reports out for New Hampshire, but they do have the forecast. And we're also going to look at New York, Minnesota, and West Virginia because we have those three in as well. For Maine, we have the two northern districts where they have some of the fall foliage starting to appear, but really not too vibrant as of right now. We're looking at 10 to 30% of trees dealing with some leaf changing, so we're not really at the peak of it right now, but you might start to see a little bit of yellow in the trees. You probably want to wait 1 or 2 more weeks to really get the full effect of that. You're probably going to have to wait until October 5th through 10th, I would say, to really get some of that, some of the fall colors to really appear. It's not shown on this map, but I mentioned this yesterday, some of the mountains in central Maine as well. I would assume there's probably some changing of the leaves in those areas, but it's just not being shown on this map because they don't have it as its own individual area. So I would assume that if you live near there, there's probably, especially in the higher elevations, some leaf changing through there. For New Hampshire, you can see that especially for the northern regions, we're going to start to see our peaks fairly soon, but before October 10th is when we should be seeing the peak. So we're already dealing with some changing in the leaves, but the peak would be around October 5th through 10th for a lot of these areas. You get down into southern New Hampshire, you're probably going to have to wait until past the 10th and maybe as late as about the 25th in a few of these spots to start to get the peak fall foliage. And then right now in Vermont, it's for the most part, for a majority of the state, you're looking at not too much in the way of foliage or fall colors. But if you were to look at some of the mountains in central and southern Vermont, as well as in northeastern Vermont, you may start to see the leaves turning colors. But again, it's still in its early stages. We're not looking at anything significant. Same map from yesterday for the New York one. They did not update this one just yet, but we are dealing with very low amounts of foliage in that yellow area, so it's not too noticeable up to this point, but we may start to be getting closer to that peak area. So for some of the areas off of Lake Ontario, the Adirondacks, Catskills, and also into some parts of southwestern New York, we're dealing with some of the fall colors starting to show a little bit. It's mainly an elevation up to this point. If you're looking at an early start to fall foliage and you want to get there earlier, I would recommend that you go up to Adirondacks. That's where you're gonna probably get the first signs of leaf changing. Pretty much anywhere in the Northeast, except for maybe northern New Hampshire, might be a little bit earlier than them. So if you want to go see some leaves changing and you don't want to wait another 3 weeks or so, definitely go up to the Adirondacks or somewhere in northern New Hampshire, and you'll be able to get some good fall colors. If we look at Minnesota and West Virginia, starting off with Minnesota, you can see that for the majority of northern Minnesota, we're dealing with some decent amounts of fall colors, but again, it's not too noticeable up to this point. The only areas that are really seeing anything that might be somewhat noticeable or somewhat visible would be in northeastern Minnesota for the most part, where we're dealing with some areas north of Duluth and some hillier areas dealing with 25 to 50% foliage cover. So you are dealing with some changing in the colors, but it's not a ton, so we're not dealing with anything too substantial there. And then West Virginia, they put out their prediction map, and you can see that other than some of the areas in the Smoky Mountains, the majority of the state is expecting their peak of fall foliage to be in mid or late October. Again, for the Smoky Mountains and this area that I just circled in, you're looking at either late September or early October to be getting your fall foliage to really reach its peak. Here's a look at the rainfall, and the reason I'm showing you this is because this will be related to those fall colors. You can see that in all the areas that will be starting to peak somewhat soon, into the northeast and also in the northern plains, we're dealing with a ton of rainfall expected over the next 10 days. We're looking at 1 to 4 inches in most of these spots, and that's going to allow some of the vibrancy to really pop out in the trees, and this is happening at an ideal time. It's happening right before what would typically be the peak of the fall foliage. So once you're getting that rainfall, it's really going to help to accelerate the process. You're not going to have to wait as long for the colors to turn. And also, you're probably going to see a few more vibrant oranges and reds on the trees because it'll have enough moisture to really allow that. So the more rainfall, the better. Especially, you don't want too much rainfall, but definitely this amount of rainfall is a good thing for fall colors. It has been somewhat dry over these spots the past couple of weeks, so getting some of that rainfall should allow the fall colors to really reach its full effect this year. So that's definitely good news. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the video, but these colder temperatures will also help to speed things up. So you might be a little bit earlier than what you would be in most years. If you look at the upper air map, it's actually going to be a really interesting setup as we get into this upcoming week. So here's that snowstorm in the northwest. We're going to look at the snowfall map in a couple of minutes, but right now we're looking at the upper air forecast. You can see that we have that trough into the Dakotas and Nebraska, and that's going to continue to shift on further to the east. What you want to pay attention to is this little area off the shore of Alaska. This will be moving just behind this system right here. So these are both going to be moving parallel to each other. This high pressure right here is going to kind of stall out right here. So while this low pressure is moving to the east, even though it has a head start, it'll start to slow down because this high pressure is blocking it. And eventually, this low pressure out near Alaska will be up near Manitoba and Ontario. It'll be over here, and it'll kind of scoop this one up and push it up into Canada again. So this is going to be an interesting setup to follow, and let's play this through, and you'll actually see that start to happen. So you can see that by this point, we have that system still in and around Alaska. We then have this trough into the northern plains, and if we move this on a little bit more, you can see that this trough in the eastern United States looks like it's pretty much just going to move out to the east. You don't have this system all that close to it. It's still fairly far into western Canada, and this one is all the way near Indiana, Kentucky, and Illinois. So it's well to the east of this first low pressure. So it looks clear. It looks like this will probably maybe stall out a little bit, but you're not going to be really interacting with too many other systems. But this high pressure is not going to really move out of the way. So this is going to allow this system to kind of just sit here for 48 hours, 72 hours. It's going to pretty much just sit there. And while it's doing that, this low pressure is going to continue to move on to the east because there's nothing blocking it from moving into central and eastern Canada. So this low pressure right here, pretty much in the exact same spot as the day before. This would be by Thursday. And you can see this one is just going to kind of dive on to the east. And because it's starting to strengthen a little bit, it'll be able to scoop up this other storm. So this would be by Friday. The low pressure was originally down here. It's now moved up to the north. And the reason that's happening is because you have this other low pressure, which is going to kind of scoop on down to the south. So they're going to rotate around each other. Sometimes we see this mostly in the Arctic Circle. So an example of that is the exact same thing is happening over Alaska at that same point. You have this low pressure right here, this low pressure right here, and another one right here. The exact same thing is happening, but usually it happens in the northern part of the globe. You also see that happening over Greenland. You have two low pressures right here. They're rotating around each other. And the only difference is that now this is happening further to the south, where typically that's going to stay confined to the Arctic regions. So areas in northern Alaska, the parts of northern Greenland, the Siberia, that's usually where that's going to take place. But this time, it's happening all the way down in southern Canada and the United States, and that's going to create an interesting setup. All this time, you're dealing with cold temperatures into the eastern United States, so it really doesn't matter that this pulled away to the north. On the surface level, pretty much nothing changed. You're still dealing with widespread colder temperatures in the eastern United States. If we move this on to Saturday, you can see they combine, they pretty much create one big system, and that eventually will be able to overpower this high pressure, which is now moving further to the east or further to the west. And as it does so, this low pressure will be able to slide on to the south and eventually move out. But it definitely is interesting how this system kind of just sat there and rotated around the other low pressure, which originated all the way in Alaska, but was able to catch up to that one in the northwest. If we look at the temperature anomalies on the surface, you can see that we start off with Monday with some fairly chilly temperatures in the northwest. You're about 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit below normal, so fairly chilly in those areas. That's the day when we're going to start to see some snow start to develop in areas like Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. As we move this on, here would be by Wednesday. You can see we do have that low pressure right here. It will be associated with a cold front, so that's why you see that sharp cutoff with the colder temperatures. You can see it's much colder to the west or to the left-hand side of that black line. And to the east of there, you actually have some milder temperatures, maybe even getting a little bit above the average. So that cold front will be pivotal into the surface temperatures for Wednesday. And then if we look at for Friday, you can see that frontal system, because it's stalled out in the Ohio Valley, is just now passing over the northeast, even though the last frame was Wednesday and the line was pretty much down here, and by Friday it's only basically parallel with or perpendicular with New England. So it hasn't moved that much. This is going to be a slow moving system, mainly due to that high pressure in eastern Canada, as well as it getting kind of absorbed by that other system further to the north. This is when they kind of combine with each other. This will be by Sunday. You can see that we have very cold temperatures, right around, I would say, 7 to 15 degrees below normal over a lot of these areas. So again, fairly chilly, and this is going to kind of wrap up your work week. And then as we get into next week, this will be by Tuesday, this will be the 28th. So not this week, but the one upcoming after that is when we have these colder temperatures still lingering in for the eastern third of the country, but it is warming up if you live in the central or western United States after that. Here's a look at the actual low temperatures, and they will be rather chilly. So I'm going to fast forward this to Wednesday, because this is when it starts to get rather cold, especially in the northern plains. You can see that we have temperatures getting down into the mid 40s. So again, nothing that's going to be too crazy. We're not dealing with anything really for a widespread area getting below 32. We're not dealing with definitely nothing below zero, nothing that's going to really be too cold. But compared to what we were dealing with before, where we were 5 or 10 degrees above normal, it will feel fairly chilly, especially considering how fast the colder temperatures will move in, and it'll kind of stay there for about 4 or 5 days before it eventually moves out. So it'll feel like a big shock to the system when you go outside and it's 45 degrees, when the other day it was 65 degrees when you went outside to go to work or to go to school. So it will feel a little bit different. Probably want to bring a sweatshirt or a jacket outside on that first day, and then eventually you'll get used to the cooler temperatures, and it won't be that big of a deal. But 40s for parts of the northern plains. If we move this on to Thursday, you can see that that shifts further to the south. So now we're into the Great Lakes with some of those mid 40s. Again, nothing that's going to be too crazy. I would not rule out some frost into northern Wisconsin, potentially the UP of Michigan. I don't think it's too likely. I think it'll be over isolated spots, but definitely a little frost is possible in those areas. Especially, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, but the amount of cloud cover you have is really important when you're looking at how far your temperatures will drop overnight. One of the reasons that you might hear this term thrown around, radiational cooling, and basically what that is when the skies are clear, it's able to cool down the surface a lot more. So when you have cloudier skies, that's trapping in some of the warmer air from the daytime. When you have kind of clear skies, there's nothing holding in the warmer air from just moving up further in the atmosphere. So what ends up happening is that on clearer days overnight, you typically see some of the colder temperatures. I would definitely watch out for this in the wintertime if you're watching your local news station, and they'll talk about, we'll see if we have clearer skies, because that'll have a big impact on the low temperature, and it will. You could definitely go from having an expected low temperature of 35 to an actual low temperature of 25 or 20 degrees, just based on if some clouds clear out earlier than expected. So if we see that happening, there's nothing stopping this from bringing the temperatures all the way down into the mid 30s, especially for areas further to the north. I don't think this will happen in somewhere like Ohio or the lower peninsula of Michigan or Indiana, but maybe for northern Minnesota, the UP of Michigan, especially inland, as well as northern Wisconsin. Also some areas like northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, northern Maine. Nothing stopping it from getting down into the mid or upper 30s, which could induce some frost. If we go to Saturday, you can see that first front moves through, so you can see the defined line right there, where you go from warm to cold. Low temperatures over much of the eastern United States going to be in the 50s and 40s for higher elevations. If you go back into the northern plains, you're not going to get a break from the colder temperatures. We're going to see this reinvigorate itself, and you're going to go back into the mid 40s and low 40s. So even some areas all the way down in Iowa, South Dakota, Nebraska might be dealing with some mid 40s for the low temperatures. And again, I would not rule out some 30s if you live in right along the Canadian border. If you live up in Canada, so if you live in Western Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, even some parts of Alberta, I would not rule out seeing some temperatures below 35 or 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So you definitely could approach the freezing mark. Probably you won't hit it, but you might approach that freezing mark, so it might create some frost overnight. If we move on to Sunday, you can see that still rather cold. We're dealing with now, this is probably going to be the coldest day for areas like Minnesota and the eastern Dakotas, where you have temperatures that are getting down expected into the 30s, the upper and mid 30s. And again, radiational cooling. We don't know whether the skies will be clear or not during that time frame. If they are, then you could see those temperatures drop even further than that. So we're going to really have to watch out. This is going to be a short-term thing that we can track. We really can't go out further than 10 days and try and forecast this, again, because of some of the localized effects. If we move this on to Monday, you can see that we're looking at temperatures expected to be into the 40s over that area. And then if we move this on to Tuesday, nothing really changes. We're still into the 40s for a good majority of this area, especially as you get inland. If you live along the coast, probably into the 50s for the low temperatures. So, again, it is going to be a rather chilly week, or at least another 10 days or so before this colder air moves out. If we look at the snowfall, this is just going to be another sign of that. We're starting to get our first big snows of the season, even into the northwest. So we have snowfall totals, especially in Wyoming, expected to be above 6 inches. Some highest elevations could get 10 or more inches. Again, nothing really in the lower elevations, but definitely interesting to see. We're seeing our first snowfall of the season in the United States for the most part, and this is happening, again, corresponding with that whole trough system, which is going to be sliding on to the east. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and I'll be responding within a couple hours of you posting that. And I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Goodbye.